Here are some questions you can ask to make sure you're choosing the right hospice company. So when someone is first being admitted into hospice, you don't even know what questions to ask because you don't know what you don't know. So on that first visit, when you're doing the hospice evaluation, that hospice worker is evaluating if you or your loved one is even appropriate for hospice. And you are evaluating if you want this hospice. So I think people forget that other part. You are evaluating them too. And just so you know, you do not have to decide if you want to go with that hospice company right then and there. You can shop around. And here are the questions you should ask when you do that. So the first question you want to ask them is, how many patients does each hospice case manager, which is the nurse, how many patients do they have? So the answer should be, each nurse should have in their patient caseload around 12 to 15 patients. You heard me correctly, because I think some hospice workers out there might be like, what? Because they have a lot more than that. They should probably not have a lot more than that. What's manageable is 12 to 15 patients. If hospice companies have nurses carrying more than 15 patients, their caseload is going to be too high to give adequate care, to be there when you call them on a random Tuesday at 2 o'clock when something's going wrong. It's been found that nurses that have a caseload of 12 to 15 patients can manage that in a week. The second question is, do they have a continuous care program? And if they don't, what's their plan? So what is continuous care? Continuous care is something that should be offered by every single hospice company. It is mandated by Medicare. However, I will say it is rarely used because we have to follow Medicare guidelines. And Medicare guidelines say there's very strict guidelines to start continuous care, which is 24-hour nursing care in the home. That only starts if your loved one on hospice is having uncontrolled symptoms. If they're having uncontrolled symptoms that the nurse case manager cannot manage on a day-to-day basis, we will start continuous care, where a nurse comes in, stays with you for 8 hours, tries to manage that symptom. If they still can't, they'll get another nurse for another 8 hours, and so on and so forth, 24 hours at a time. Again, this is a rarity, but it's something that has to be offered by a hospice company, so you must ask them, do they provide this if needed? And the answer should be yes. Now, if the answer is no, then they need to have another solution, which some hospice companies have a great solution. And it's usually they have like an inpatient care center you can go to, a skilled nursing facility they're contracted with that you can go to, or a hospital that they're contracted with, which you can go to if you're having these uncontrolled symptoms. That's an okay thing too. You'll just be leaving your home. So important thing to think about and ask about, which most people don't know to do so. The third and final question is, how do they manage difficult situations or symptoms? So not everyone's end of life is easy. There's a lot of diseases that have a lot of symptoms: pain, shortness of breath, confusion, agitation, and you may need really advanced care. Now, one way you can manage that is like what I said, continuous care. But also, you need to ask them, what do they provide to manage these symptoms? Do they have things like CAD pumps, which help manage pain? Do they have advanced level ability to manage different pain levels? Do they have things besides tablets or pills to take to manage pain or agitation? Can you go to get a procedure done like a paracentesis if you have ascites and you're having uncontrolled symptoms because of it? The answer to all these questions is yes. They should provide all of these things if needed. Now, you may never need them, but you need to be with a hospice company that does advanced care and can provide those things and is willing to provide those things. So the last thing I want you to know, and this is not a question, but just something to think about. So when you do that first meeting with a hospice company, that's the evaluation. That is not you automatically being signed up for hospice with that particular hospice company. Now, if you like them and they say you're appropriate, perfect, that's great. If you end up being with them for a month or so and you are unhappy with how their service has been, you can always move to a different hospice. You may get some pressure from them to try to stay, but legally you are allowed to change hospice companies whenever you want. Also, on that first visit, if you are not sure you want to go with that hospice company, you do not have to sign up that day. I'm stressing that because a lot of hospice companies will make you feel like you have to. You don't. You can think about it. You can go to another hospice and get evaluated by them. You can test out different hospices that first visit. Now, it is going to be a little bit of legwork on your end if you choose to do that, because each time you get a hospice admission, like that first visit, you have to get a referral from a doctor each time. So it's going to be a lot of work on your end to get a referral each time, because you can't have them visit and then say, let me go shop around for a little bit, but I'll call you if I'm interested. They have to close that case immediately once you say you want to look at other hospices, and then you have to go back and get another referral. So again, a little more work on your end, but in my opinion, it can be worth it to make sure you find the right fit for you. Here are the green flags to look out for when you're choosing that hospice company. Number one, the first thing to remember is that hospice is governed by Medicare. So every hospice should be operating under Medicare guidelines. Number two, you want to make sure that hospice has enough staff. How do you know that? By asking the patient caseload, and every nurse should have about 12 to 15 patients. Also, that you want to make sure that they have enough staff to help when there are crises happening, right? So you want to have continuous care or some kind of inpatient service you can go to if you're having some kind of pain crisis or agitation, whatever may come up. You also want to make sure that they have on-call nurses. How many nurses do they have on call during the evening, during the weekends? Will they come to you 24 hours a day? The answer should be yes, they will. And they should have at least 2 or 3 nurses on call at any given time. And then number 3, what systems do they have in place to manage your symptoms? Do they only provide pills and tablets, or do they provide things like liquid medications? Do they provide different types of patches for pain medication? Do they have stuff like CAD pumps to do sub-Q or IV medication if needed? All of those things should be yeses, and they should be in place just in case you need them. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope this video helps you choose the right hospice for you.